Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Of course, back here with Randall. I want to introduce, we're going to be doing videos here on a weekly basis talking about the company, Randall's background, industry, tech, the world, you name it. And if you have any questions, I'd love to get them in a bunch of these videos, whether it's again about the company, about his personal background, crazy things he does, you name it. I'd love to see it below. I already know there's going to be some fitness questions asked. I've seen a ton of them already. So I appreciate that. Randall, first things first, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, here, want to keep it really easy. We just do like your background kind of before Phunware, how you got into Phunware, and then we'll kind of close things there. Do you want to kick it off? Maybe like where you went to school, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Austin. I honestly never really saw myself being in the military, but I had a good friend at the time who was trying to convince me to go to school with him. And I was like, he's like, I'm going to West Point. And I'm like, you got to be in the military, don't you? He's like, yeah, you got to join the Army afterwards. I'm like, no, thanks. I was going to go to UT. I was going to have a great time. I was going to party. And then, I've always been one of those people that thinks, it's hard for me to say no to a challenge. Like it's like a personal affront to my ego. And so I'm like, well, I'll apply. So at least I can say I tried. I didn't, basically quit. And so I applied and, sure as hell, I got in. So I'm like, well, now I got to go. I can't say no now. So went to West Point, but this is, I went in 98, so Rumsfeld was downsizing the Army. Literally, my friend was like, hey, we'll probably get paid not to even serve in the Army. People were getting paid like $100 grand to give up their commission and not go into the Army. So I'm like, hey, great. That's an awesome deal. We'll get a free education. I wasn't rich growing up. I was like, it's a good education and I probably won't have to serve in the Army. Junior year, 9/11. And so I still remember walking into the door of my first class junior year, and it was this old school curmudgeon-y, like colonel. And he goes, well, cadets, you're all going to war. I was like, oh, son of a bitch. Like best laid plans kind of went out the window, but wouldn't trade it for anything. So did the airborne ranger route, did a couple tours in Iraq. It's not an experience that I would have chosen, but, glad I was able to come back, safe and healthy relatively. But you see a lot and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about people. Amazing to watch, 18, 19-year-old kids that grew up in the middle of nowhere America doing amazing things, negotiating, peace treaties with tribal leaders or setting up civil affairs initiatives and building schools, but then also doing raids and taking care of each other. And so, we were a very kinetic unit, in and around Fallujah in 2003, went back to Iraq again in 2005. It's an amazing experience to camaraderie, and you learn a lot about leadership, organizational development. Got out of the Army and used that opportunity to go back to grad school. So I got an MBA at McCombs at UT. And that's kind of when I started my entrepreneurial journey. And so, I'll stop there because that was school, and then we can go any direction we want to go.
Yeah, look, keep going down the timeline. You're killing it. The school one was even more exciting than I thought it was going to be. So, all right, now you have your MBA and your first job or your first,
Well, I'll do you one better.
What?
I don't know that I deserve the MBA. So I actually got called out at graduation by the dean of the McCombs School of Business because I set the record for the most independent studies. So I've always been really entrepreneurial. I didn't really like the curriculum at McCombs. And so I created my own curriculum. So I would convince faculty members to give me credit for things I was doing in the real world. So I took over a local angel network called the Central Texas Angel Network, grew that to be the most active angel network in the country. I started a healthcare venture fund called Texo Ventures with two other founders. And then I did a Kaufman Fellowship. And then I started another company through that venture fund, Texo Ventures. And so for all those things, I got faculty members to sponsor what I was doing in the real world and give me course credit for it. And so literally when I was getting my diploma, they were like, well, since you didn't really take any of our classes, I don't know that you really deserve a McCombs diploma, but we'll still give it to you. And so I've always been one of those people that tries to see things differently. And, my dad always taught me, from an early age, don't just complain about something if you don't have a solution. And so I would always find things I didn't like and then try to find a way to fix it. So did that, ran an angel network, started a healthcare venture fund, ran that. Ironically, when I was running the angel network, me and Alan met. So he was moving from Silicon Valley And he had this big idea he was going to be an investor. He had already sold a couple companies. He had already done some successful things. He was going to hang his hat up and he was going to teach the next generation. And so I remember, somebody was like, hey, will you meet this guy? He's coming into town. So we sat down at coffee at this Starbucks, in kind of West Austin. I told him after about 30 minutes, I was like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but there's no way in hell you're going to be an investor. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I can spot an entrepreneur from a mile away. It's just pattern recognition. I was like, you talk too fast. You can't sit still. You got another idea every other sentence. I was like, I guarantee it. He's like, no. I'm really ready to sit down with my family, take it easy. And I'm like, all right, whatever you say. I kid you not. 4 weeks later, he's like, can I meet with you? So we met again. He's like, I have an idea for a company. And so I helped out with the first $1.5 million to start Phunware with Alan in 2009, both ex-Army Rangers. So we were, we stayed in touch. And then, come kind of 2017, we were kind of talking about the progress the company had made. In 2017, he's like, hey, you think about it, would you invest in kind of our last round before we go public? Learn more about where the company was at that point, put several $1 million into the last round before we went public. And then, the old COO, a great guy named Scott Kenyon, had to step away. And he asked me, hey, would you, kind of get into the ship, pick up an oar and start rowing with me? And quite frankly, it would have taken a very special company for me to give up the venture capital gig. And that company turned out to be Phunware. The minute I started doing due diligence on the investment, I knew that, what this company had a potential to do and the transformational opportunity we had, I had to be a part of it.
Oh, it's crazy. Hey, that's a great story. I would love, just before we hop into Phunware, work in the VC world. I know a lot of people have interests. Like, you want to talk about any like the interesting investments you might have made or things you saw. It doesn't even have to be things you threw money at, but that whole Shark Tank kind of vibe.
Yeah,
interesting to people. So I'd love to hear if you saw any.
I love it. I mean, so like for me, I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but early on, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I didn't have so much passion about any one idea. And so, for me, being an early mentor of mine was a guy named Admiral Bob Inman, who incredible figure, but early investor in Dell and Oracle. And he kind of got me into investing and kind of taught me a lot about it, him and his son, Tom. And, I loved, different problems, stomping out different fires, doing different things. It's just like an adrenaline rush. And I always tell people entrepreneurs are like little drug dealers. They're running around and they're just pitching their idea. And like once you get hooked, you just want more, being around people who are passionate, driving innovation, trying to, do something different and putting, all of themselves into it and putting it all on the line, that's, infectious. And so being around that in that ecosystem, it's inspiring. And once you have it, you just want more of it, like a little junkie. So I'm an innovation junkie. And so, doing that though, you're always going to be, if you're an investor, you're a backseat driver. You should be. If you're investing in the right companies, you're a backseat driver. Maybe you're advising on where to go. If the company's having some problems, maybe you ride shotgun, and then if the company's doing something crazy, you might grab the wheel or you might drive. That's not typically what you want. But the challenge for someone like me, I'm a type A personality. Big surprise there. It's hard to be a backseat driver, and so being from the military where you have a team and you're very directed to then being a VC where you're kind of hands off, you're just advising. I missed that. I missed one team, one fight. Let's go change the world. Let's do something special together. And so I needed to get back, into a company. And so, Phunware was exactly that for me. I loved being a part of the venture community, but I wouldn't give up, leading a company and leading people for anything.
Yeah. No, hey, awesome story. And now, so you say you walk into the COO role. Curious for people, what does that look like on a day-to-day, week-to-week, let's say? What's the COO of Phunware doing?
Yeah, all I do really is I try to surround myself with really smart people and then take credit for everything they do. And so that is my only job in life, is to try to own everything that they do. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, I think the way it works, so me and Alan, we're two sides of the same coin, but there's differences, right? And we have different approaches, different backgrounds, but we're always working kind of in tandem on everything. And so there's a great way in which we can kind of complement each other and split, different, functionalities, like talking to different investors, talking to different analysts. And then, where I think we allow him to kind of think strategically about the company and set the vision and work on that. A COO should be able to kind of manage the nuts and bolts. How do we resource our team? How do we drive operational efficiency? How do we ensure that our KPIs are being met? How do we keep everybody on task? So, the good thing about us both being in the military is the military does do organizational development very well. And so your commander or your CEO should be able to set the vision, set commander's intent, and then the organization should be able to execute on that. And so you need somebody, being able to kind of, herd the cats and make sure that everybody, takes that vision and applies it correctly and then is reporting back, so you have that constant feedback loop. So I think that's the inherent role of a COO, is to, be there as the yin to a CEO's yang, and then also be able to be that nexus for the company to tie all the resources together, keep everybody on track, and make sure that we're ultimately successful and that everybody's resourced.